welcome everybody to the first webinar in a series of webinars ETIS is starting. The theme is the future of telecoms, and we're very happy to kick it off with a presentation given by FTI Delta. So we really want to see how telcos are expanding beyond their core business. And why is that important? We really see that for a long time, by the way, it's not like a new phenomenon. The core business of the telecom operators is really under threat. Traditional services, voice, messaging, video services, including TV services, are increasingly at risk. Big tech companies are taking over these domains, whether it's Meta, whether it's Netflix, all the other big tech companies. They really take over voice, messaging, and video services. And on top of that, in some countries, we also see that low-cost players, and a recent example of this is Digi in some countries, continue to disrupt the market, so putting the ARPU, the revenue per user, even more at risk. In response to this, telecom operators obviously are acting, and they want to diversify by entering new verticals. They can do this for two main reasons: to maximize the customer lifecycle value in order to reduce churn and increase stickiness, or also to really tap into new revenue opportunities. Or also, both reasons can sometimes be coming into play by entering new verticals. So Atis really wants to see what is happening the last couple of years, and so that's the reason why we organized this series of webinars. We really want the telcos to share their initiatives so that the other ones can get insights in what is going on in other countries and really can learn from these experiences. So for the people who are new to ETIS and who are in the call, I will give a short introduction, but the bulk of the webinar obviously is dedicated to the theme of this webinar, for which we have FTI Delta as a keynote speaker. So what is ETIS? ETIS is a platform in the European telecom industry. We organize webinars, physical meetings, a yearly gathering. We produce benchmarks and surveys. We're already in the market for over 30 years, and we're very happy that as members we have over 30 operators all over Europe, and also 17 suppliers in the telecom industry. In total, we have 20 working groups. You can see them on this slide. All these working groups are also described on our website. If you go to etis.org, you find all the information related to the mandate, the type of people participating in these working groups, and also their upcoming activities. So related to the upcoming activities, also on our website, you can find the list. I will not go through the list here. You will get the slides also this afternoon. I just want to zoom in on some which are close by or very important to already block your agendas. We have tomorrow a very interesting one given by Deloitte, which will focus on the social reporting standards in the CSRD reporting, including also the human rights due diligence. So you see here the QR code. Also, when you have the slides this afternoon, you're still able and very welcome to register to also attend this webinar. As part of this series we kick off today, we have already one next week planned for telecom operators only. So if you're an operator, you're also very welcome to register for this webinar taking place next Tuesday at the same time, 11 to 12, where we will zoom in on insurances. This was already started in the past, but we will continue also the views of the operators who did not present their activities in the insurance vertical. Sorry. The next one then is on smart home systems, so also a vertical which is already being entered for a while by many operators. We want to have a heads up on where we are related to smart homes in the webinar foreseen in 2 weeks from now. And then last but not least, our most important meeting on a yearly basis is the ETIS community gathering, for which we have booked already a hotel and all its meeting rooms in Athens on June 5th and 6th, 2025. And also the theme of the gathering will be very closely linked to the topic of today, because it will really be about how telcos navigate new markets and also leverage AI to create value. So we'll have 16 working groups meeting in Athens. So you can also already register for this event. Now, this brings us to the topic of today. I've already introduced the theme, but we're very happy to have two speakers from FTI Delta. We have Ricard and we have Carlos, who are both experts in telecommunications and who will introduce a framework they developed and also apply the framework to a specific vertical, as an example, the energy sector. Now, before I give the floor to our speakers, a number of house rules. We will record the session. So you will get the link so you can rewatch the presentations or also share it with colleagues. And also the presentation, this one I've just presented, and also the one of FTI Delta will be shared with you. You can now, during the webinar, ask your questions via the chat function. We will already address some of them during the presentation. There are more people from FTI Delta also in the call. We'll also take live some questions during the presentation, and we'll also have a Q&A slot foreseen at the end of the webinar. At the end, we will also ask you to share your feedback, but I will come back with this slide at the end of the webinar. So now, without further ado, I'm very happy to hand over to our colleagues from FTI Delta to present their framework and their zoom in on the energy vertical.
Okay, thanks a lot, Wim, and thank you everyone for joining us in today's meeting. I think we wanted to start this session with a quick introduction about ourselves and about the company, so you also have an idea who you are meeting. So I'll start myself, but Ricard, although you can contribute later. My name is Carlos Vidal. I'm an associate partner at FTI Delta. I've been more than 15 years working in the TMT space, supporting telco operators across Europe, Middle East and Africa, Americas and Asia. So I would say generating a pretty good understanding of what the telecom industry is, what the developments are happening across regions. And now I'm based here in Europe, and I'm very happy to be on this call and have this discussion with you all.
Hello, this is Ricard. I'm also an associate partner at FTI Delta. I have 12 years of experience also working on strategy consulting for telcos, and I have a specific experience on defining and implementing the strategies for the telcos to expand into adjacencies, working with telcos in the UK, the Middle East, and the Americas. Nice to meet you all.
Just quickly, myself, I'm Lodovico, consultant at FTI Delta. I've been working for the past 3.5 years with both Carlos and Ricard in Europe.
So on us, besides ourselves, we are part of FTI Delta, but we are a global consulting company specialized in the TMT space and a part of a even broader company, FTI Consulting. So we as FTI Delta cover the strategy part, 400 professionals focused in TMT. And basically, I think the big message that we want to pass is this one. No? It's like we are focused and we are global. And besides the services that we provide, our company also, we believe that transformation is the rule of the game when it comes to supporting the companies from the professional services angle. So besides strategy, we also offer transformation, cost transformation, turnarounds, strategic communications, forensic litigation, etc. No? So more than 8,000 employees across the globe, and as we'd like to say, it's creating impact for all our clients. No? So look, again, without further ado, let's move into what the topic of today is, and we have structured the presentation in 3 parts. No? The first one where we will provide a brief introduction to consumer adjacencies. Then we will move into the framework of what we have claimed to be the key success factors to tap into this opportunity. And finally, we will do a deep dive into, we are calling here the energy market, but it's the energy market in the context of telcos moving into energy as an adjacency. Okay. So setting a little bit the scene of how we define the adjacencies, the ones that we are covering are adjacencies for the consumer segment, okay? And we are not going to be covering content or devices that are today an essential part of the telco's value proposition. We will be speaking about the broader spectrum of services that can be offered by the telco operators, leveraging their own assets or partnerships with other firms. Okay, in this exercise, and following the research that we have conducted, waiting for the slide. Okay, we have identified 14 telcos, 14 verticals in which telcos can participate. So 14 verticals that have potential for telcos to tap in, leveraging 2 key things. No? One is the trust that they have built with their customers. Second, the data, the user data that exists. Out of, I mean, while we see opportunities in these 14 verticals, we also see that if we look at European telcos, there is a significant number of them started, or a significant number of you started to move or to expand beyond the core business to explore opportunities outside. No? And we have conducted a research covering probably nearly 70 telco operators, out of which we see that only a handful of them have remained focused in the core business, in the connectivity, whereas the majority started to tap into adjacent spaces. The number of adjacent spaces that are being covered by these telco operators varies, but we see a significant number of telcos that already deployed more than 5 adjacencies. I see MEO as having covered 9, and we had a similar conversation on adjacencies already with Pedro that I already saw in the room today. So this is the main message. No, it is not a hype. Moving into adjacent spaces is a reality, but it's a reality that it's not always successful. No, and probably this is the reason why we are in this room today discussing about how to address it. And it's not being successful, or sometimes we fail and we need to reconsider how we tap into it. No, we brought some examples of telcos entering into adjacencies and adjacent spaces, and later on exiting. The example of Vodafone moving into energy and due to the situation in the energy markets, exiting. Orange entering into banking as well as Proximus entering into banking with both services somehow discontinued, but with different realities. In one, we needed clear differentiation. In the case of Proximus, is a service that will be relaunched. So at the end, the message that we want to pass is that tapping into adjacencies might require multiple attempts to do it well. Okay, and then it's just there might be cases where entering into an adjacent space, it's an opportunity in a moment of time, but then with the evolution of the industry that we are tapping into, the opportunity for the telco might also dilute, right? Or needs to be reconsidered, which probably is the case with TIM and their music service. And with this, we wanted to introduce the framework or the eyes with which we look into adjacencies. So, Ricardo, I'll pass the floor to you if you want to cover it from here.
Yeah. So, and here what we did, we analyzed all these cases, both the cases of failure and success, and we identified some reasons for failure as well as key success factors that drive whether it's a failure or success when we expand into adjacencies. And we are classifying it in these three categories. The first one is having a very clear reason why we are expanding into adjacencies. This means having clearly stated objectives. As Wim commented, and also we are going to discuss later on, there are very different reasons why telcos might consider moving into adjacencies. Depending on these reasons, the what and the how we expand is going to be very different. And the other important thing as part of the why is to having very clear what do we bring to the table as telecom operators. We have some assets that we can leverage. We need to leverage some of these so that we are able to compete in these new markets where we would be evolving. As part of the what, the first one that we have, and maybe let me point with the laser. This one is also very important. So it's very common to look at benchmarks of what are other operators doing or to copying what the competitor is doing, but each operator and each market has a different reality. What is working in one place might not be working in the other. So applying these specific lenses for each operator, we think it's very important. The one on use cases. So here, until this point, we have been discussing about energy, healthcare, smart home, but within each of these verticals, there are very different use cases that can be done, very different plays in terms of services, in terms of the role in the value chain. So generally what we try to say is let's think in this next level of detail because the decision might be very different. And finally, aligning with the target segments that we have in the core business. So we have one example in the Middle East of a player developing a successful adjacency, but for a segment that it was not the target segment, and then having difficulties to monetize and realize the objectives that they had at the beginning for that adjacent. And finally, the how. And the how is mainly remaining in sync, remaining aligned with the objectives that have been defined initially. It's very easy that then when it comes to implementation, we forget about the reasons why we were doing this. We take decisions that go in the other direction. So making sure that we keep consistent and aligned with that. Good. So now I'm going to talk. I'm going to focus on the part of the why. And here, as Wim commented before, there are two main reasons why operators might decide to go into adjacencies. One is maximizing the CLV of our core business. So we already have our telecom business, and we want to have adjacencies to help increasing the CLV. This can be done by either reducing the churn. If there are more services, the same customers have more services, it's easier to lock them in, or also to extract more value, increase the ARPU of this existing base that we have. This objective is very different from the one of thinking, okay, let me tap into a new revenue pool. No? Already in many markets, the telecom revenues are flat or are stagnant. So let me try to see other levels of growth by going into other markets. In this case, the considerations that we do are different. No? And we are looking into, okay, how we can generate new revenue streams, how we can get new customers. And then also, as part of the why, wanted to touch on the part of the household. No? So, and this depends on each operator, but generally operators have these assets. No? They are the owners of the connectivity that is the gateway to many of the household services. There's a lot of data that can be used to personalize those propositions, and also there are a lot of channels to engage with the customers, no? The digital retail call center, and this together with a relationship of trust in the case of the established operators. So all this is a good combination, we think, to fulfill some of the needs in the household and try to go there. No? So the idea is to be consistent with these assets. And here already we're thinking in the perspective of the household. No? So this is a chart that shows the UK monthly household expenditure in 2023. We see that what we have in these white categories are probably the ones that are very difficult to address as a telecom operator, but these ones that we have in green are the ones that we think that are addressable, are where we can find an angle and where we have seen that operators are already trying to penetrate. And this represents 36% of the household expenditure. No? In terms of monthly revenue, in the case of the UK, it's nearly £900. So it's a significant amount. No? When you compare with a normal ARPU, no? In the UK, a normal ARPU of fixed plus mobile could be maybe £50–70. Capturing just a small percentage of this 900 incrementally would represent a huge increase in the ARPU. Okay, good. So now we slightly cover the key success factors on the why section. We are going to cover the what. And here we will start with this analysis that we did. We focused on the 65 selected telecom operators, and we mapped the verticals that they are tackling. No? And what we see is that there are actually two that are very mature, that many of them are doing. One is the B2C digital services. Here, a big part of this is cybersecurity, and also the one of insurance, no, that has a dedicated webinar in the coming month. The ones that we think that are more interesting are actually the ones that we call emerging, no, because there are some that are starting, that start to have some presence, and here, for example, the ones of energy, financial services, and healthcare are very interesting to analyze. There are also very different use cases, as we were commenting, that you can do within each of them. And then also there are the nascent that for some specific operators, depending on the objectives, can also become very interesting opportunities. Also, something that we would like to comment is that here we were differentiating between the service and the physical angle. So when we talk about these numbers in white, this is the service, no? Like, for example, in the case of gaming, there are a lot of players that are offering the gaming consoles. We consider this very close to the hardware play, so probably it's not a service adjacency as we are looking into it. Good, and now here is the point about looking into the use cases. No? So until now we discussed about verticals, but within each vertical you can do many different things. And here that's the example in the case of smart home. No? So in smart home, there can be many services, from security alarms to energy management or smart appliances. And also the role in the value chain can be very different. No? It can be just a partnership with some of these providers and to put it together in the telecom bill, or it can be really the telecom operator having the capability to offer this. No? This would be the vertical axis. So what this means is that within each vertical, we are going to have a lot of use cases. And actually, it would be, you would have even hundreds of use cases, no, but that it's too much. So here what we have is showing an example of 39 use cases that were grouped and shortlisted for the prioritization of one of the operators that we work for. And also here, what we did is we added the mapping of what the European telcos are doing, no? And we don't have time here to go into the detail, but what we see is that when we go inside the vertical, there's a lot of variety on the different use cases. No, like for example, in financial services, some are even doing retail banking, some other ones are doing the direct carrier billing, that it's a more it's penetrating less the value chain. And then here is, no, here we are in the section of, it's very important to select the right adjacencies and to ensure that we meet the objectives that we defined. And here, what we are saying is, depending on the objectives that we commented, there are different considerations. No? So if what we want to do is we want to maximize the core customer lifetime value, these are the things that we need to look at, the ones in the left. For example, to reduce churn, it's very important, would be very important that the service that we offer is recurring. No, the stickiness that we can create, it's very different if it's recurring or if it's just a one-off service and then there's nothing else. Also, in the case of for maximizing adoption within this objective, very important that we see if that's attractive for the customers that are within our target, no, the ones that are part of our segment. And then if what we want to do is we want to access new revenue, we look if the market is attractive, what are the opportunities of growth, and especially what is our right to play. No? So here, something that is important is to see if there are very clear winners and it will be very difficult to compete against them, or there is a chance. No? And even the way we do the adjacency will depend on that. No? Like, for example, if we want to offer a music streaming service, we need to think, okay, how do we have an angle against a leader like Spotify? No? So these are the kind of considerations here. This is just an example on how the framework is put on motion. So then, depending on some of these criteria, we can map the use cases, we can rank them. The importance that we give to each of the considerations will depend on each operator and the objective of the operator. And at the end, this is to get an idea on, okay, these would be the use cases that are relevant. No? In that example, of course, then there are a lot of discussions with the management to make the final decisions on what are the right use case. And this is an example of, we put here the example of Movistar in Spain, no? On how they selected two adjacencies that are actually able to meet the two objectives, no? and have some criteria. So maybe Lodo, you can explain this brief.
Yeah, so we wanted to present as Ricard said, the case of Movistar and how it has entered the alarms and home security market and that of solar energy, as we feel this is a good case of a telco entering an adjacent market while ticking all the boxes of the possible priority objectives that a telco can accomplish when entering into an adjacent market. As these are both markets that are very attractive and emerging, they have been growing and are expected to continue on this trajectory. In the case of Spain, these are under-penetrated market with the household penetration levels that are lower compared to other European countries. These are markets in Spain that are very fragmented with no clear winner. So it's very clear that these are very good market for a telco trying to access new revenue pools, but also allow Movistar to maximize the value of its core customer base, as the way they designed these services, they are recurring services, so subscription based, and require the installation of hardware at the premise. So somewhat increasing the stickiness of the brand with the customer and allowing it to grow the tenure of core customers. These are household related services, so part of Movistar's effort to build an ecosystem of services around the household and being somewhat the sole provider. And lastly, they specifically target specific segments of the customer base. So alarms targeting the more high value premium customers, and the solar energy more the suburban and second residences customers. So again, we feel this is a good example of a telco entering specific markets based on the market reality of the region where they operate, while also having in mind the priority objectives that they want to accomplish.
Thank you, Lodo. And then still within this section of the word, there's a final consideration that is having the portfolio perspective. No? So as Carlos explained at the beginning, there are several operators that already are already covering several verticals. So it's good to have this view, this strategy on, okay, do we want to go deeper into some of these verticals, or do we want to expand and be broader? No? And here we have observed very different models. No? Like there's the ecosystem play here, Proximus, and I know there's people in the call from Proximus, that's Proximus Plus, that is really trying to do this, to cover a lot of different services more with a light touch. And then the other extreme would be the selective play, no? So focusing on few, but then going very deep into these verticals. And finally, we have the operators that are already expanding and doing a bit both, no? So covering several of the verticals and going deep into each of them. Good. So now we will cover briefly the how. And here what is important is that we align every aspect of the definition to the implementation. No? So when we think in the adjacency, there's a part of defining the value proposition, pricing, product. Probably these are the ones where there is generally more focus, but then there are many other things that need to be defined. Know how we are going to make the customers aware that we are offering this service, what are the channels, how we are going to get specific talent that maybe we need that knows about this vertical, how we are getting the funding, what do we need about technology. So we need to think cross-functionally and also leveraging the assets across the organization to ensure that success. And maybe here to close this with an example. No? So here we have the example of Fastweb that has gone into the energy, and we are focusing on CVP, pricing, and product. No? Within CVP, what we find very interesting is how they are positioning the energy service as one more P. No? So we talk about the 2P, 3P, 4P. So basically, what they are putting energy for them as the third P. No? There's the mobile connectivity, there's the home connectivity, and then there is energy. You can see it here visually. And even in the offer configurator that they have, no, it's at the same level as mobile and fixed, and then the customers can decide if they want the three together, only one or the other, and configure the service in each of them. This idea of having it together with the connectivity talks very well about this, the part of growing the tenure, reducing the churn, no? Because we are providing all these services together in the same package. The part of pricing, also Fastweb has been innovative, and we have seen it has been different compared to the other operators. That is that they offer a fixed fee that is contracted. So regardless on the consumption, there's a fixed fee, then only they charge more if there's additional consumption. So this is also something that we see that is innovative, that the other energy providers are not doing. So it's a differential angle from the traditional energy providers. Plus also it's mirroring a bit the telco structure. No? So generally in fixed connectivity, we also have this flat fee nowadays. So it's applying this into the energy sector. And then also finally in the product, there's an angle of innovation that is the one of sourcing from renewable energy, and they have a green certificate. So this is also helping their targets and improve the branding of Fastweb in Italy. This is just a specific example for energy, no? But then for each of the different verticals, each of the different use cases, there will be different considerations to take across each of these levers to ensure the successful implementation. So this is the end of the second chapter. Here we were planning to take a break for Q&A in case there are any questions from the audience. I think there have been some through the chat, but maybe there are more that we can cover.
Yes, thank you, Ricard. I think there are some questions indeed, and I think most have already been addressed or commented on. But I think there are probably some topics which can elaborate it further on. I think the question of Thomas Schildbach is an interesting one. So I think going into other business, moving into adjacencies leads to a lot of challenges because there is the question of expertise also in that adjacency or vertical. So there are other companies probably having more expertise than telcos. So how can telcos cope with that? I think there is also an interesting comparison made with other industries, like the car industry in Europe, specifically in Germany, who is not in the best shape due to probably a number of strategic bad choices with respect to electrification of cars. So I think a lot of adjacencies are also doing their transformation, are on the move. So making it probably even more difficult to enter that adjacency and to make the right choices. So what is your answer to that or your advice, Carlos?
I think, Wim, thanks for reading the question. And look, I answered. I tried to answer in the chat, no? But and for us, yeah, we see that moving into the adjacency space is a challenge, right? That's why we were introducing this assessment framework on the 3 key questions. No, it's the why we want to do it. If we don't have a very strong why we should not, right? And having a very strong why does not only means a reason and a determination, no? But also what do we want to achieve with it, how we are going to measure it. I think in the session that we had last month, where we started to talk about this topic, one of the things that was brought to the table is, the problem is that many times we don't set KPIs for ourselves. I'm trying to bring some of the points that your telco colleagues brought to the table. No, it's like maybe we don't set the right KPIs, and later on we don't measure them to later on compare our achievements and performance against the KPIs that have been set and be able to consider it a success or not a success. Okay, and then it's on the what, right? And we are saying, yes, many industries are being disrupted. That is true. We might fail, and that's why the selection of the what, which is not only the vertical, is the specific use case within the vertical, is very important. No, and even if we have a clear rationale, and even if we have done the right selection, things can go wrong. Things can go wrong because there can be a difference between the execution or the capabilities that we have to deliver to successfully deliver on this product versus what we need to deliver on it. No? So this is what we are the way we are assessing it and the challenges that we observe. But look, besides our thought about it, if anyone wants to bring their 2 cents on the topic, we are happy to open the microphone if possible. I don't know if it is possible.
Yeah, and maybe Carlos just wanted to add on the point of other verticals being as well disrupted, that this from the perspective of the telco can be an opportunity, no? Because maybe there's some disruption that the traditional player in that vertical cannot adopt because it has some risks, but as a new entrant in that industry, we can try to learn. And for example, within energy, the fact that now the green energy is becoming important, that's something that for a traditional player, it's very difficult to say and to comply. But if you are entering the market, maybe you can differentiate that.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. And perhaps then a second question, and we can link it also to the first question, because there is the question related to hyperscalers and the big tech companies. The hyperscalers obviously are eating part of the lunch of the telcos, and they have a global footprint. They have the whole world as their customer base at once. I think we discussed that also in the meeting last month. So that's definitely a disadvantage of telcos if they do it on their own and they have a smaller footprint. So what's your view on that? And the question is also linked to then the marketing of hyperscalers. I'm not sure what is implied by marketing, because I think they have as the customer base the whole globe, so to speak. So they don't have to market that their services that much. They have that advantage over the telcos as well, I guess.
Now, look, probably since I replied, I'll start. But again, happy to hear everyone's thoughts. No? And we didn't prepare this document thinking about the hyperscalers, no. But if we look at how they operate, what I wanted to bring is 2 points. No, one is they are platforms. They are not single services, right? If you look at many of these hyperscalers, they can provide. They look more 360 degrees at the needs of their users, and they tap into these opportunities. No, for us as telcos in Europe, traditionally we have focused in the telco space. But if we look at telcos in other regions, if we go into Turkey or we go into India or we go into certain countries in Africa, what we see is that the telcos are probably the single most important companies of these countries, no? And as such, they offer a broad spectrum of services already. No? And that means that they are not acting as a service provider, but as a platform provider, which I would assimilate to a certain extent to the role that hyperscalers can have. And so one of the things is, one of the learnings to me would be this, no? Like trying to understand or to look at ourselves, the telcos, as a platform that can offer multiple services. The connectivity is one of them, but more can be added into that platform. No? So if we look at the sort of the pizza that we draw in one of these first slides with the 14 verticals, the 15th one will be connectivity, right? The rest are the opportunities to expand. Then there is another one that I would highlight, and it's the usage of data. No? So in that same pizza, we are talking that we have the trust of the customer and we have the data. No? So the opportunity on how we use the data, or the evolution of the way telco have used consumer data to provide or enable service provision, is it has evolved significantly, and it has room for continuous even more development. So
okay, very clear. Thank you, Carlos. I think there is one question related to B2B, but this session is focusing mostly on B2C, I think. But perhaps a more general question, does your framework apply as well to B2B services?
So look, I think in the case of B2B, there are actually very good opportunities, but that can be even closer to the core than in the case of B2C. Now, what I mean is within, so there is, if you want, connectivity, but you have the domain of ICT, and there we have IoT, cybersecurity, even now AI, that are very closely linked to connectivity. No? And what we have seen here in Europe, in the Middle East, in many places, is operators already offering this in an integrated way. No? Like, for example, we have the example of Telefónica Tech that offers all these services. So I would say that probably there it's not that much about choosing within a lot of use cases is finding the way to compete and build the capabilities in these verticals that are very closely linked to the connectivity and transition from being a connectivity player to an ICT player. We have actually experts in the company know that it's not as about that topic, and it's also something that we can cover in another webinar.
Yeah, okay, very good. We'll take that up definitely in a webinar in the series we're just starting. I think there are already some comments around the scaling issue. I think Pedro is mentioning that the operators are closer to their customers than the hyperscalers, so that's definitely a strong advantage telcos have over the hyperscalers. They know their customers a lot better, and I think the scaling issue is also mentioned by Case from KPN. If it doesn't scale, it's better to partner. So I think that's also a good suggestion. Perhaps we can move now to the second part. I think we will have a short zoom in on one vertical, the energy domain.
Yeah, and this is a swim to complement what you just said. I think that from the different verticals and use cases that we covered, there are some where the competition is global, no? And then it might be difficult to compete on your own without this global scale. Let's take music streaming. There are others where the vertical is already, the competition occurs at a national level. And for example, this can be the part of energy or even healthcare. In that case, this problem, you can still have the problem of scale when you think about competing with established players, but it's less than competing at a global scale.
Yeah, so that can be an important criterion to select a specific use case. Very good. So let's move to the second part, which will be a bit shorter also as we have less time.
Yes, so we will use this, we'll use 5 minutes to cover this. So look here, what we did is we analyzed the several cases of operators getting into energy. And this is not the energy vertical. This is within energy, the provision of the electricity to the home. And we analyzed these cases, and then we identified the differences and options across each of these parameters that we have in the horizontal axis. No? So what are the options in terms of value proposition, product, brand, and so on. In the vertical axis, we have the level of disruption versus the traditional energy market. No? So here the idea is, if you want to do something that is very differential, that is disrupting the market, ideally you are more with the options on the top. But at the same time, this takes effort, energy, and resources. No? So you need to be very strategic on whether you want to be here or you want to find a balance, or maybe there's a specific niche opportunity that you can still capture by being at the bottom. And then probably let's explain briefly the different options. So within value proposition, this is the example of fast web. No? Everything integrated, it's one more P that is packaged together with the connectivity service. There can be something in the middle that is, okay, I don't package it together, but I still give discounts or benefits in the cross-selling, or the energy can be fully standalone when then we don't have that benefit of reducing the churn for my core business as a telco. The part of the product, no, we can say, okay, let's be 100% green. No, it's a way to find a disruptive angle, or we can still go traditional with the standard sources. In terms of brand, we have also seen both cases where the Telecom brand is used, but in some cases it's more a partnership, and then there's a combination of the Telecom and the utility provider. Also the part of pricing, no, what we discussed about the example of fast web, of having a fixed fee versus having the traditional pricing that it's fully based on consumption. and then also the part of the service. No? So here we have seen some operators, and we will see the examples that together with the provision of electricity, they are providing all other related services around that. And then also something that is mirroring some of the capabilities nowadays of the telcos of tracking consumption, no, applying this also to the energy. Also, some traditional players have this, but we have seen a lot of telcos getting that. And yeah, I see we don't have much time. In this color, we were trying to explain how playing in each of these is helping some of the objectives that we discussed before. And here we have examples. No, Fastweb is the one that we covered, very innovative in the CVP product, brand and pricing, not in the case of service. And then, for example, we have this other one, no, where actually the innovation is happening a lot in the part of service, adding these additional services on top of providing the electricity, but in some other cases they are being more conservative. And for example, this is an example of one that is being much more conservative. There's only the angle of green energy, but generally the rest is not disrupting the market. Here we have the specific examples. We know that there's also people in the call from Altice, and we can comment this together, but I think we are out of time, so we will close.
This is the example of the synergy, as Pedro said.
Yeah. So with this, we close it, and I think also ETIS, you wanted to have the final minutes to close the session. I'm not sure if there's any other interesting question to discuss, or we want to close it.
I think there are some questions coming in as we speak. So I don't know if we can take them live. One is from Alexander. The DNA white paper appears to promote European network operator champions. One of the purposes is to serve European cloud structures. To which extent are European cloud structures essential to deliver adjacencies, and are EU network champions the only means to that end?
Yeah, I think this is within the also within the B2B domain. And here what we have seen is when you want to expand within ICT, cloud is the first step. No? So having these cloud structures would be a key enabler to then being able to offer the other services that we mentioned on top of it. Then we are not aware on this structure of the European network operator champions, but for sure there are synergies to help the European players to play at scale if there's some kind of partnerships in that direction.
And I think then there is a very concrete question. I'm not sure if you are aware or whether Fastweb is in the call, but is the energy service also built on the same invoice as the telco services? I think there is always this question. I think it's also related to possible bill shocks which you may have if you combine several services on one invoice. Do you know whether it's invoiced on one?
Based on our understanding, yes, it's a single invoice, but we'll double check.
And even in the offer configurator, no, when you decide, okay, I want fixed plus mobile plus energy, then they tell you the price altogether. No? And we know we have been discussing with some operators that see this a bit as a problem, the fact that then the bill becomes larger, no, and they discover that they're spending so much money on this, but at the end, if it's because we are providing value, no, and we are providing both mobile, fixed, and electricity, it should be well accepted for the customer.
Yeah, very good. And perhaps one last question related again to expertise and also comparing, I think, a telco to a heavy beast. Meaning probably that there is an issue of finding the right people to offer these new services. So what is, in your experience, the right way to develop the capabilities which you need to have if you want to move into adjacencies? And do you want to keep it within your company, or is it better to spin it off, to look for M&As, corporate ventures, strategies in order to launch these type of services? So is it in-house? Is it
So
next
here,
door, so to speak?
when we think in consumer, we generally tend to, because it depends on the objective, no? That if the objective is to be connected with the core, probably it doesn't make sense to spin it off unless there's a very clear way to connect the two things, no? And even if the objective is to access a new revenue pool, ideally to compete, we are leveraging on the assets that we have as a telecom operator, no? So in case that there's a spin-off, we need to be very careful that these assets do not get disconnected. Not sure, Carlos, I think you wanted to talk about it.
Sorry, I was on mute. No, there is another angle because you ask for M&A, right? And I think that there are also different approaches on how to tap into these opportunities, no? We were discussing again a month ago about entering the home security business and how different operators have done it, no? If you look at for instance, NOS in Portugal, they went with a partnership with I think it was Securitas Direct. Okay, is a commercial partnership, right? Movistar or Telefónica in Spain, they did a joint venture acquiring 50% of Prosegur alarms. Okay, so to offer the same service to the customer, there are different approaches or the different house into the solution that might be more tailored to the objective that the operator against the whys that they want to achieve. So again, no one size fits all. It's very specific to the what you want to do it, the why you want to do it, what do you want to achieve with it, and as a consequence, cascading that why into how it needs to be done.
Okay, thank you, Carlos, Ricard, for the insights given. We already get some good feedback via the chat channel. So thanks again for taking the lead in this conversation. I do want to invite you to the next webinar. So this was just touching the surface on the different verticals. I think I like the metaphor that telecom connectivity is one vertical, but there are 14 other verticals identified to move into. So a lot of opportunities. But it's good to have a framework to enter the vertical, and so we'll take up the other verticals with the in-depth discussions in the webinars coming up. So I would also like to invite you to share your feedback with the QR code shown now by Ayush. Your feedback is important also to organize the future sessions. It's really good to know how you want to take this further. We think of a roundtable format with a number of presentations given by the operators, so that you get the insights, the experience, the lessons learned by the operator, and you can ask questions. And so we can then take the different operators in the call in a roundtable format. If you have other ideas, feel free to share them. We have all the time still to adapt the format of the upcoming webinars. But thanks to everybody attending the webinar, to FTI Delta, to the central office team, to manage the logistics of the webinar, and looking forward to meeting all of you, hopefully in a future webinar coming up. Hopefully the one of the insurance on 3rd of December already next week. Ayush?
Thank you everyone for joining, and we definitely hope to see you in the upcoming sessions. You can find the details on the ETIS website, etis.org/events. Thank you very much.
And you get the link to the recording and also the presentation this afternoon.
Yeah, and again, if you on our side, we are very happy to get any follow-up questions and discuss the topic more in detail. So we we can happy to connect.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Enjoy lunch.